The opinions expressed in this show do not necessarily reflect the views of Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Connecting with Kim here on Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network. I'm your host, Kim Droege. I'm so glad you joined us today because we have another great show coming up. And I love all my shows, as you well know. So before we get started, let me just ask you to like and follow the Connecting with Kim accounts on Instagram, Facebook, and X, where you can find all the information about the show, about the broadcast schedule, about the guests, and of course my on-air wardrobe, which is provided courtesy of the Spring of Tampa Bay from their thrift store located on North Willow here in Tampa. And the net proceeds from their store support their mission, which is providing safe spaces and empowering services for survivors of domestic violence and their children, and they've been doing that excellently for 4 decades. So we want you to support them, and as I do. I can't keep all the stuff that I get from the store. I'm sorry. I love it all, but I can't keep it all. But you can. So I always, as you know, post when the outfits are available so that you can go and buy them. I also want to ask you to catch the audio of our show on Sun Radio 96.3 FM. And on your favorite streaming platform, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. And if that's not enough, you can always go to our award-winning streaming service, watch.tbae.net. And there you can catch my show, all the other excellent programming we do here at TBAE, as well as past episodes of Connecting with Kim. They're all available there for you for your viewing pleasure at your convenience. So I'm so excited about today's show because I really have a legend in the chair, and I'm so grateful she took the time out of her schedule to be with us. So I want to introduce you to Bridgette Bello, who is the CEO and publisher of Tampa Bay Business and Wealth magazine. Welcome, Bridgette, to Connecting with Kim.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, trust me. So everybody knows we begin the same way with every show. I like my guests to take a few moments, however long they want, to share as much about their life journey as they feel comfortable with.
Well, my life journey has been pretty public for some time now, so I'm okay being sharing the whole thing, I guess. So I was born in Lubbock, Texas, which most people don't even know where that is, but it's a little town in Lubbock, Texas. We lived there until I was 2.5, I think 3 years old. My mother was uneducated and very young. She was 21. And my father was an interesting guy. They were small business owners. That's where the entrepreneurial spirit came from, I'm sure of it. And he wasn't a nice man. And so my childhood was pretty interesting. At 6 years old, he held a gun to my head. Told my mom that he was going to take us both out if she left, which was the whole fight that they were having. He tried to strangle himself with my jump rope once. I mean, he just really was a very controlling, very abusive man. There are things that I didn't see, thank God, that my mom won't talk about to this day, honestly. But what I've learned, and I love your support of the Spring, it's obviously something that's near and dear to my heart, is that my idea of what love was generated by what I saw from my parents. And that's normal, right?
That's normal.
That's all kids. That's
all
their
kids.
idea of what love is. And so he would do this really interesting thing when we would go to the grocery store. He would stand at one end of the aisle, and my uncle would stand at the other end of the aisle to keep us safe. And as we moved down the aisles of the grocery store, they moved down the aisles. And so my idea of what love was somebody who was controlling and smothering and we couldn't be out of his sight.
And protecting you.
They were protecting us, yes, from the boogeyman or something like that. And so my mom left in kind of in the middle of the night when I was 11 years old. She packed us up and moved us out. My father was not allowed to know where we were. I did not have contact with him until court orders forced me to. And the next time that I saw him after we left was when he was in a coffin. And I was 15 years old. He was murdered in a drug deal that had gone bad by a Hell's Angel, believe it or not, which is an interesting story in and of itself.
I'll
right?
bet.
Yeah.
That's for another show.
For another show, yeah. But Dad just wasn't a good guy, you know.
No.
He just wasn't. We grew up middle class. They were business owners, so everything looked perfect on the outside. But
As it often does, right?
as it often does. Yes, absolutely. So fast forward, my mom moved me to Melbourne, Florida, as I like to call it. She was a single mom at the time. She was uneducated, and
But a survivor.
she was a survivor. She absolutely was a survivor. I was slipping through her fingers pretty quickly, and so not a good student, not a good kid. Pretty much did everything other than get pregnant and go to jail. Everything else, pretty much, you can assume I did. It was an interesting teenage journey. People are often surprised to find out that I didn't graduate from high school. I was supposed to walk, and I'm not a morning person. I'm still not a morning person, and anyone who knows me will tell you I don't do mornings. I just don't. And so I never went to first period. And even though I had an A in the class, which is a history class, which I don't like history to this day, they wouldn't let me walk because of absences. And so I had to go to summer school and get a GED, which was pretty embarrassing for me. And I was determined at that point I was going to blow through college. I was going to nail college. I was going to do amazing things. And I did. I finished my AA degree at junior college in 18 months and then went to the University of Florida. Worked at the Alligator when I first got to the University of Florida, which was the year after the student murders. My mom was terrified. I met the profile. I was petite and brunette and all the things of, all the girls that he had killed.
Right.
And it was the year of the copycat murders. Mm-hmm. So my first assignment at the Alligator was to interview the parents of the girls who had been murdered by the copycat murderer.
Goodness me.
Yeah,
That's
like,
a pretty big thing for someone at your age to deal with that kind of trauma and emotion.
I was 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it was also the moment that even though I had spent my whole life wanting to be a journalist and believing in the First Amendment and being a First Amendment junkie, that I said, I don't think this is what I want to do. I don't want to call parents of dead kids and interview them. Like it didn't turn out to be my thing.
well, fortunately, journalism is a big word for a big world.
It is, but you typically start either writing police beat or obituaries.
Right.
At
More
the
fun.
time, yeah, more fun. At the time, that was about an $18,000 a year job, and my sights were set a little bit higher than that.
Yep.
So I ended up at a radio station doing the news in the morning. Yeah, which means you have to be there at 4:30.
I know. I'm like, you're not a morning
I'm
person.
not a morning
so I-
person,
Yeah.
right? My on-air name was Heather Fox, which everyone gets a big kick out of. Back then, DJs didn't use their real names. Now they do in a lot of cases. And I used to joke, like, if I'm there at 4:30, it's because I'm still up, because it's not that I woke up to be there.
I didn't go to bed.
No.
I just came.
And I was late a lot, which wasn't great. And one day the station manager came in, and I was finishing my shift, and he said, I need to talk to you. And I was like, oh, I'm getting fired. I'm like, I'll do better. I'll be here sooner. I'm sorry. And he was like, no, I need to talk to you. And he took me out in the parking lot. And then I'm like, I'm really getting fired. And it will depend on the age of your viewers, whether they'll relate to this or not. But he pointed at a Pinto in the parking lot, which for those who don't know, they used to explode on impact. It was not a good car.
Right.
And he said, that's the car that my highest paid on-air personality drives. And he pointed at a BMW. And he said, that's the car that my highest paid salesperson drives. What car do you want to drive? And I
The
picked
BMW.
Obviously, yeah. And that set me on a path for a 10-year career in radio sales that was amazing. It was a wonderful career, and I used to say I had radio in my blood. In the meantime, I met what I thought was the love of my life, and what he turned out to be was my father. And
Well, history often repeats itself, right?
it does, because you go back to, that was my idea of love. So when he was doing things that were controlling and
You thought it was love.
protecting me, I thought, oh my gosh, he
loves
loves me
me.
so much, right? Had a little girl, which is the best thing that I got out of that relationship. She's now 28. She'll be 28 next month. And it was a really horrible marriage. He was very abusive to me. And there's a lot of things that happened in between that I won't go into. But at my about 10-year mark in radio, I had a client offer me a position to leave radio and come be his advertising agency. I was going to be, so to put it in perspective, this was 1999. I was going to be making $300,000 a year. And I quickly said, well, I'm done with radio. It's not my blood anymore. I'm going to go take this job. And I told him I wanted to take the summer off to spend with my then 3.5-year-old daughter. And that I would start on August 15th when she went back to school. On July 15th, which happened to be my birthday, I got a call from the client, and they said that TJ had been fired and that they would not be honoring my contract.
Oh, good.
So I
Yeah,
found
thank
myself
you.
without a job
On my birthday.
on my birthday with a 3.5-year-old and a husband who had just gotten out of the military and kept getting fired from every job he had. So we had set him up in a business probably 6 months before that. So I was paying all the bills.
Yeah.
And so I quickly had to find something. I had a 6-month non-compete,
Right.
which is standard for the industry. And the only thing I had ever done was radio, right? So ended up getting a phone call from a gentleman at the Business Journal, the Jacksonville Business Journal at the time, who is still my mentor and still a dear friend. And he said, you know, I keep asking for recommendations for somebody to run my advertising department. Your name keeps coming up. Are you interested? And I was like,
You got a sec?
sort of. Well,
you weren't sure.
back then you didn't go backwards. You didn't go from radio
Right.
to print, right?
Right.
Because print was already dead.
Right.
In
Supposedly.
1999. Right?
Yeah.
Print was dead when I was in college, in journalism school, and clearly it's still here. But I had a conversation with him and thought, okay, I think I can work for him for 6 months until my non-compete is up, and then go back to radio. And that turned into an 18-year career.
Wow.
Yeah, which was wonderful. I grew up in that company. I was 29 when I joined. I was 40, almost 8 when I left. So very much grew up in that company, and it was a wonderful experience. I got divorced in the middle of that. After trying to drive my car off the Howard Franklin Bridge with both of us in it, putting his head through the windshield of it, and then throwing my phone out the window so that I stopped and got out to get my phone, he left me on the side of the road at 3 o'clock in the morning. And there was a gentleman that had been following us since the bridge.
Wondering what the heck is going on.
Clearly sensing something wasn't
Right. Right. Thank God.
Thank God. And he pulled over, and I got out to get my phone, and my husband got in the driver's seat and drove away with my car. And this guy called the police, and the police came, and I've since gone back and tried to find this officer and have not been able to, which I kind of feel like he was an angel.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But like there's no record of what his name was, and he's not around anymore, and so I can't explain it any other way.
But that's okay. There are angels among
I
us.
believe, not everyone believes that.
I believe it.
that.
I believe it.
Yes.
And I believe that God is opening and closing doors as you are ready and fit to step
Absolutely.
through.
Absolutely. He showed up and he said, this was a long time ago, I was a lot thinner, but he said, you're clearly very pretty and very smart and have a very successful career. And he said, I'm not supposed to say this to you, but what's it going to take? Is he going to have to kill you?
Yeah.
And that was the moment that I thought.
You or your child or both.
Or both. And this guy sees the worst of the worst, right? And he's asking me that?
Yeah.
Like, he's asking me if he's going to kill me? So that was the last time that I saw my ex-husband. I have the longest running restraining order in the history of Pinellas County at the time. I don't know, there could be worse now. But that was in 2008, and I still have a restraining order against him. So, tell me when you want me to stop talking. I told you this was long.
Well, I think you've obviously had a big life. You have obviously had big careers. I think since if you're just joining me now, because this might be a good time to say this, that my guest in the chair is Bridgette Bello, who is the CEO and publisher of Tampa Bay Business and Wealth magazine. So I think we ought to maybe spend a few minutes talking about that, because in researching you, I said to myself, what in the world, because I know you worked at another magazine before that. I thought, what in the world would possess someone, because like we said, print has been dying for, 40 years.
Yep.
What would possess someone in 2018 to say, I'm going to start this magazine? I think there's a market for this magazine, and obviously there is. And I also don't want to gloss over or skip over your advocacy and promotion of women, because you really do a great job of that.
Thank you. Well, I'll wrap up the last part by saying I'm happily married and have been for 11 years to an amazing man, because it would be really terrible for me not to recognize.
You should, because he is an amazing man.
He's an amazing man, and he doesn't control me, and he's an
lets you
amazing
be
father and an amazing grandfather now. So,
Yeah.
yes. So what possessed me in 2018 to launch a magazine when print's been dying for 40 years?
Well, and when a lot of people around that same time frame were launching magazines, and this is just before COVID, right? So, and those magazines didn't make it. So that's I want to know, like, what was it?
First of all, I'm not a quitter, right?
No, you obviously are not a quitter.
And I had some serious beliefs about the way the journalism world in general were going, and felt very strongly that I could do it right, that I've been a journalist since the first time I had copy actually produced on air, I was 6 years old. It was a story that I had written. And so this has been my life's mission. And when reporters started getting paid for clicks, and they started getting paid for salacious headlines, because that's what would make people
Or no
click.
content at all.
No content at all. No research on the content. Just get it out there, get it out there, get it out there, get it out there. I really had an issue with that, and that was a nationwide problem. It's still a nationwide problem. It's not a particular product. But I believed I could do it right. I had built some amazing relationships in this community, and part of what I really struggled with was writing stories about people that weren't fair, that were not their best day, that maybe the other side of the story wasn't told. And so the mission of the magazine was and continues to be that we are intent on having a positive impact on the economic development of Tampa Bay. We live here, our families are here, right? So how do we do that and still be journalists? And so we pick and choose, honestly. We tell people that's not a TBBW story, and we're very intentional about the content. The other thing that I thought would set us apart, and has, is an intense focus on what some would consider a small audience. The magazine goes to 15,000 CEOs every month. But there is no other resource for CEOs. There's no other publication or event company or digital media company that is laser focused in Tampa Bay on that C-suite. And they have unique challenges. They face things that other people don't face.
Well, and also you get to you're telling their story in a very positive way,
right,
which may not be something that's available to them regularly.
Yeah, we get to tell stories of people that no one else has gotten to do, and we do that because we're not looking for a gotcha moment. We're not looking for a quote that we can take out of context. We're looking for something that they're going to be proud of, and that they're going to want to share, and that other people in the community are going to want to share, and really telling the stories of the people who haven't been told, right? That we all see the same 50 names in the headlines every day. There's millions of people here in this community that just the press is not important to them, and that tells you a lot about them as a person, right? They go to work every day. They have hundreds of people that they employ, thousands in some cases. They're injecting millions of dollars into our local economy, and they're just doing it quietly.
And they're sponsoring, and they're philanthropic at the same time. So
Absolutely.
I think this is wonderful, and I guess I love how you. They should have a. That's what I do with my show. It's an opportunity to shine. I don't do anything negative. I don't do politics. I don't do any of the bad news. I only do goodness stuff.
Yep.
Because you can get that anywhere.
Well, they used to tell us in college, if it bleeds, it leads.
It leads.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that anymore.
No. It's not interesting.
Suck the life out of you.
Yeah.
It literally sucks the life out of you. So I love what I do now. And I love the feedback I get from people like you, from leaders in the community. We've won multiple awards.
You have.
And just am really, really proud of what we've built. But I don't know that we could have built what we've built in any other community other than Tampa Bay. I think we live in the best business community on the planet. I really do. And I feel blessed every day to be part of it.
I love that you say that, because that's an important thing for people to recognize. We'd have to have a whole screen just dedicated to all your awards and all of your recognition. So I don't want to skip over the advocacy and that you do for women. So let's touch on that before, because this thing is going fast.
I keep not answering you. Well, there's a lot of reasons for my advocacy for women, and it's something that has been innate in me for a very, very long time. Recognizing women, giving women a platform, giving women the opportunity to realize that there's more than one seat at the table, and that if there's not, then you go get your own seat and bring it to the table. We do a tremendous amount of recognizing. One of the things we set out from the very beginning with the magazine was that we were going to have 4 female CEOs on the cover every year, and we've stuck to that. Also 4 minorities, and we've stuck to that, and that was way before
that was a thing.
DE&I and all of this stuff, because it's harder to find women in the C-suite, and I think that's wrong, and I think it's very important that those of us who have made our way to the C-suite turn around and pull somebody else along with us. And so I try really hard to do that. You were talking about all my awards and accolades, and all of those are wonderful, and they all mean a tremendous amount to me, but probably the most meaningful that I've ever received was within the last 90 days. The South Tampa Chamber not only named an award after me, but they also gave me the first annual award. And so it's called the Bridgette Bello Champion for Women Award. And thank you.
No, I'm happy for you, Bridgette. I know a lot of those folks at South Tampa Chamber, a lot of those women who are driving South Tampa Chamber, and so I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
And it's very, very deserved.
My mother, my sister, and my daughter surprised me in the room, and so I ugly cried in front of a lot of people.
That's okay.
But
I've seen you cry. You don't look ugly.
Right? How cool. I mean, 3 women that are also
most important
in my
to you in your
family,
life, right?
most important to me in my life, and they were all there for that. So, yeah. Advocacy-wise, I'm a breast cancer survivor. We didn't get to that part of the story because I talked too long.
You have to come back.
So
we're not going to cover a lot of things I want to talk about. So.
Okay. So I'm big advocate for getting your mammograms. We caught mine at stage 1. That's because I'm religious about getting my mammograms, and so I try to shout that from all the rooftops and give women. I do an event every year where they get free breast cancer screenings. One of the newest ones has become thyroid cancer, which is something that I didn't realize the prevalence of, and that it's one of the number 1 killers of women. And so at that same event, we provide free thyroid screenings, but just cancer in general. And so I'm actually chairing Light the Night for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And a lot of people have said, why leukemia lymphoma? You didn't have that. You don't have it in your family. One of the things that I learned about that organization is that blood is easier to do research on than a mass, which if you think about it, makes perfect sense, right? And so the Leukemia Lymphoma Society is actually finding cures for pancreatic cancer, breast cancer, lupus, diabetes, all kinds of things, because their research is in the blood, which is something we all have.
And we all have it, and it touches every cell in your body.
It does.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's my latest advocacy, and then domestic violence has been for a very, very long time. I'm board of directors emeritus for the spring. I sit on a board that's called iRise. That's a young organization that's focused on helping domestic violence victims and human trafficking victims who share a lot of the same traumas.
Yep.
And kind of giving them a new life and a new start. So I could go on and on about those causes, but those are really the ones that I'm women, breast cancer, or cancer in general, and domestic violence.
Well, I think it's a testament. I'd love to see women succeed despite everything, because you certainly did have a traumatic childhood. You had a traumatic first marriage. I'm happy that you're now in a much better place.
Thank you.
So this is a important message to convey to other women, the idea that you are not alone, number 1, which is from the spring, but you can find your way.
Well, you're not a product of what happens to you. You're a product of what you do with it.
Exactly. You're a product of, there's always an opportunity to step away and open a new door.
And
At
help
least I
somebody
believe
else
that.
on your way.
And help somebody else, which you do. I love that. So we've only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to
Okay.
ask you, what was the biggest surprise that you had after you started TBBW magazine? What was the biggest surprise that you encountered that you weren't expecting?
There's probably a lot of them. I think one of the funniest ones is that there were three of us that kind of left together and started the magazine. And the first day, we all sat down at my kitchen counter because we didn't have an office. And my house was in the middle of construction from having been destroyed from a hurricane. And we all looked at each other and said, has anybody ever worked at a magazine before? And none of us had. Like, none of us had ever worked at a magazine before. And we're like, okay, we got this, right? So again, going back to there's nothing you can't do, there's nothing you can't figure out if you put your heart and mind into it. Getting to see these stories and these people, and there's a misperception about the wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what's been so rewarding is not only for myself but for my team to get to see these are incredible people. Mm-hmm. And they do incredible things. And quite honestly, I don't know where this community would be without them. They are the ones who are the philanthropists. They are the ones who are making a difference in this community. They are the ones who are donating their time and their treasure and their talent. And I don't know that I necessarily recognized that prior because I wasn't necessarily running in these super wealthy, uber wealthy circles like I am now. And there's not a single person that we've put on the cover that I wouldn't leave my kid or dog with. They're just good people. And I think that's a misperception and something that needs to be taken away.
I love that. And you're right. It is a misperception. And I think the other thing that most people don't realize is you don't get to the C-suite, the corner suite. You don't get there without making sacrifices.
Absolutely.
And you pay a price for that. Everyone does. But if you can retain your humanity and your compassion and care as you make that journey, I think that's wonderful and should be showcased.
And I'm sure there's people who don't.
There's always people who don't.
I just haven't encountered very many of them.
And bravo to you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Well, I want to thank you for being my guest today on Connecting with Kim. If you are just joining us now, my guest in the chair is Bridgette Bello, the CEO and publisher of Tampa Bay Business and Wealth Magazine. And they have a wonderful website. Let's give them the website because you can find out everything on the website. Trust me, I know, I've been there.
It's tbbwmag.com.
Yeah, go have a look because there's a lot of beautiful, wonderful drop-down menus. I know because I went through every single one of them. And there's a lot of information that you can find out if you're not a subscriber to the magazine. So, go there, take a look, have a visit because it's well worth it. And again, thank you so much, Bridgette. That's all we have time for today on Connecting with Kim. We want to give another shout out to our sponsor, the Spring of Tampa Bay, providing safe spaces and empowering services for survivors of domestic violence and their children for more than 4 decades. And they have a big year coming up this year as they are consolidating and moving into a new location. And we'll have more about that later on in this fall. So thank you for joining us. Come back next week for another edition of Connecting with Kim. So long.